All right, guys. Welcome to a Dram of Diving. I just wanted to let you know that we have our YouTube channel up and running. I uploaded a bunch of stuff the other night. It's basically redone versions of our Facebook Live that's just posted on YouTube that might be a little bit easier for you to navigate and find. So today we are discussing removal of artifacts from shipwrecks. Should this be done? Should this not be done? To what level? Where are we? Where are we talking? Lots of different opinions on this. Sometimes it gets heated. We're just asking that we keep this all adult and we have a conversation with it. I'm going to try to moderate this to the best of my ability. We have different guests joining us throughout. I'm going to post in the chat here, and it's a link into the green room, essentially. If I can get you in, that is, I would like to hear from you. But we have some people that are a little bit nervous about getting on there, which is completely understood, and some people that want to be heard. We'll see how this goes and go from there. Basically, the idea is discussion of, if we have a shipwreck, do we want to leave the artifacts in the shipwreck, on the shipwreck, around the shipwreck, or do we want to pull them off and either donate them to a museum, or what do we do with those artifacts? How do we go from there? Ross and Chris had originally said that they would have chimed in, but apparently everybody's back working or something. I don't know what's going on there. I know Aaron Argstrom is planning on, oh good, video is crapping out. Aaron Argstrom is planning on joining us pretty soon, as well as is Mark Powell. And then, Aaron's just jumping on right now. I'll put him on in a second. Aaron and hopefully Jeff Gaudreau. He is currently delivering meat, so we will see what ends up happening with that. So I believe, without further, as Aaron says, without further ado, we will get Aaron on here really quick and go from there. So I'm going to... Aaron, are you good to go?
Yeah, all good, buddy.
All right, beautiful. I'm going to turn you on then. All right, hey, bud.
How's it going?
Good, you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just a lot happening over here, but all good.
Good. So, hot topic in general. Hopefully, we're going to have some other people join us. I know that you're getting ready for doing your show. What time are you on at? A couple hours?
Yeah, so it would be 2 hours from now. We're on with Jim Standing and Paul Strike from Fourth Element.
Nice. Excellent. So, basically, we're just looking for people's opinions on whether artifacts should be removed from wrecks, and if so or if not, kind of what the stipulations are there and what your opinions are. I mean, you're a accomplished wreck diver, so I'd be really interested in hearing your opinion on this.
Sure. I can maybe just talk a little bit about my background in wrecks and what kind of wreck diving I've been doing, and where my thoughts have maybe developed during my wreck diving career. So, as all of you watching, I was usually just going out to the most of the hotspots that were available worldwide, in infrequently visited dive spots and diving the local wrecks that were around. They maybe didn't have a lot of history tied to it, or a lot of artifacts for that matter, because most of them had, drilled holes. They were all made for advanced open water divers with wreck certifications and whatever. So they're all very straightforward. Everything that was considered dangerous, or any artifacts for that matter, were taken off the ship before it was scuttled, right?
Yep.
Shortly after that, after all that stuff, I started to dip my toes a little bit deeper into wreck diving. I think when we discovered our first wreck, U.S. Coast Guard cutter Alexander Hamilton, a U.S. Coast Guard cutter, like I said, there was 25 people still on the ship at 330 feet, and they had been for 70, 2 years or whatever. So that's a U.S. war grave. I am by law obviously not allowed to take anything. I'm not. I didn't touch it, except when we put the memorial plaque on for the soldiers, right?
Hmm.
So that's now we touched on the recreational wrecks that are made for divers to enjoy quite easily, and this is kind of the opposite. Um, a war grave where you can't and shouldn't touch anything, and then we have something that's, I guess, kind of in the middle. We got, for example, truck. Truck is a place with over 50 wrecks, and they are, heavily one of the wreck meccas in the world. People visit them incessantly, but it's also a war grave, right? 5,000 Japanese
Hmm.
people died in that conflict, and also obviously Americans, but the majority were Japanese. So again, that then you ask yourself, well, is it now okay to collect the souvenir? Um,
Hmm.
I know a lot of people that have souvenirs from truck in their house right now, and
Really?
some of them took them in the 70s, some of them did in the 80s, some of them did in the 90s, some of them did a couple of years ago. It doesn't really change the fact that all the people that come after you, they won't be able to see what you saw. And what's sitting on your mantelpiece is now really only reserved for you and your friends. That's the raw truth of the matter, to be honest with you. And some of the wrecks, I mean, in truck, there's one wreck where we have hundreds of medicine bottles in one designated area where there used to be, and I'm diving there frequently since 2017, right? So there must have been thousands and thousands in the last 40 years. And now in 2020, I was there, in January last time, and
Hmm.
there must have been like a couple dozen left, less than 100. So now they're practically gone. And these are, beautiful artifacts that are really amazing to see. Um, so there's this aspect of it, these things will disappear for the fact for other people to see. Then we have the bit of more extreme side of things in the UK, for example, in Scapa Flow, World War One, wrecks where, my God, people take portholes. They're not taking
Yeah.
small stuff; they're taking big chunks of the wreck with them. And again, it's a mantelpiece, and I get it. It looks beautiful, and I think all these things look beautiful, and I'd love to have them on my mantelpiece. But at the same time, I mean, if we all did that, what would there be left? Um, so my closing argument would maybe be, since, for example, in Bikini, again, no casualties, uh, at least not during the operation,
Right.
but afterwards. Um, Now we have lots of battleships, aircraft carriers, and the rest of it. Again, with tons of artifacts. And again, I know people that have taken things off. I don't allow anybody to do this kind of stuff on my trips, obviously. However, the only thing I've taken from a wreck ever in my career has to be a cave line. And that's an overhead environment line. So there was a permanent guideline that was being used in the Saratoga, the aircraft carrier in Bikini. And there was parts of it that needed replacing because it was just about to snap. And as I was cleaning it up and replaced the line, instead of throwing the line in the garbage, I took it with me home. And that's just like a sentimental
Hmm.
thing for me. But it was going in the bin anyway. I was not going to leave, a piece of line inside the wreck. So this is kind of my opinion.
That works. So, I mean, obviously, there's going to be lots of different opinions, and some people are going to be willing to jump on and not willing to jump on. But, like, say, with the bottles behind me, some are actually bottles, and some are wine
Yeah,
bottles that are like
sure.
recent that just look nice. What's your opinion on maybe a wine bottle here and there from around the wreck? Maybe not necessarily going inside the wreck, but something that's kind of offshoot on the side.
I personally, I couldn't promote me myself taking
Hmm.
anything, and I couldn't, because
Yeah.
then I would be encouraging hundreds of people that are on my trips every year to follow my lead. So personally, I can't do it. I just can't. I'd love to, and it'd be a dream to have a 200-old whiskey bottle or something in the living room, but it's gonna have to be for another day. It's one of those things for me. I have to be a role model because I'm in that position.
Yep.
If somebody gave it to me and it's already out of the water and I have no idea where it's from, I'd probably be very happy. But again, me taking it myself, I couldn't.
Yeah, that works. Well, I appreciate your time, Aaron. Thank you for
No
jumping
worries.
on and giving us your opinion. And everybody's being like super crazy adult, and then personally, like their lips are shut on the chat, which is kind of amazing. I thought it would be way worse over there, but they're all hanging out there. I think everybody's trying to feel out the room. So I appreciate it. I'm hoping to join in with you later. And I'm going to
Sure.
switch over to Mark Powell really quick.
Right.
Do you want to say hi to him, or are you going to jump off? Here, let me put him on
I
here.
can stay for a little bit. We just had a chat last week. I wouldn't mind.
Okay, that works. Whenever you need to run, just tell us.
All right, cool.
All right, we're bringing Mark in right now. Mark's in now. There he is. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Jason and Aaron. Nice to see you on time for this one, Aaron.
You're not nice. Wasting any time there. It's just straight away.
Oh yeah.
Nice. I'm not sure if you heard it, Mark. Aaron kind of give us a rundown of his opinion on removal of artifacts from wrecks. What's your thoughts on removal of artifacts from wrecks, Mark?
Yeah, I heard Aaron's comments, and I've got to say, I agree with everything he said, especially that point about being the role model. I guess I've got a slightly different take on it, though, because Aaron said he's only ever taken a line from a wreck. I've taken things off wrecks in the past. As a UK wreck diver, it was part of the culture. You go back 20, 30 years ago, it was part of the culture. And so, yeah, I did take things off back in the bad old days. I think what's really interesting is that one of the justifications that we used to use is that, well, if I don't take it, the next diver will. So I think part of it has got to do with the culture. I've dived in other places where it's absolutely forbidden, illegal to take things off. And so I think it's not just down to the individual divers; it's about the whole culture around it. The other thing as well, I think one of the things that I remember saying to Aaron when we were in truck is, after we'd been in one of the engine rooms, I said, this is what an engine room is supposed to look like. The trouble with diving many of the wrecks now around the UK is that they've been so stripped that they're big empty rooms. Yes, okay, it's got the boiler in there, it's got the big stuff, but it doesn't have all of the machinery, it doesn't have all the gauges. And diving in an engine room which is intact, like the ones in truck, is a very, very different story. I mean, you can actually see how the things work. You can see the indicator lights, and that to me is just a much, much better dive. So I think the way that we've got to look at it as an industry is that leaving things on the wreck is just better for business. If your business is tourism, then you're going to attract more people to a wreck which has got more things on it. If you run a dive center and you've got a choice of having keeping the wreck pristine, then it's just much, much better for business. So I think it's down to the industry as a whole to sort of create this idea that we're better off leaving it there most of the time. And I think one of the really interesting things, because everyone's going to be politically correct, one of the really interesting things is, when is it justified, even today, to take things off wrecks? And I think there are some cases when it is justified. So, Aaron, what do you think? Would there be any time when you would take something off a wreck?
Well, I think what you said about the culture is very apt, because I'm obviously from the younger generation. I'm 33, right? And when I started diving, oh, don't start now. When I started diving in truck, for example, this was many, many years, 40 plus years since people started diving it, right? And when Jacques Cousteau was doing his thing, for example, in truck, they took home 10 tons of stuff from the wrecks. I mean, you imagine. So again, it's like what you said. It was a different culture, but I find it kind of uplifting that when I started getting seriously into it and the subject was raised, not more than maybe 5 years ago, I was instilled with that attitude very early on, and I've continued with it. So that gives me a little bit of hope when we look at wreck divers in the future. What the industry seems to be resonating now, because this was all I ever heard. I didn't hear many brass hunters saying, let's go grab stuff, right? But at the same time, there's plenty of instances where it could be, it depends. Where is it going? Is it going to a museum? Is it going for science?
Yeah, exactly.
Now all the chatter started on the side. You guys are starting to stir up everybody, which was to be expected. All right, so let's grab this one here. Good point. But then who decides the age of deterioration? If you guys are making comments, just kind of give us an indicator of what you're talking about, because there might be a slight delay before we can throw it up there, but that's good. So, where do you decide that age of deterioration? It's kind of based off the diver's opinion, right?
So yeah, and that's what I was getting at. It's not an easy decision. I would take something off a wreck to preserve it. If I thought it was going to be lost, but then that's a great question. Who decides that? Who decides when it's about to be lost? And I think that's where the real gray area comes in. If it's a well-preserved wreck and you can tell it's going to be there for another 10 or 20 years, it's a no-brainer. But who decides when a piece of an artifact is at risk of being lost? It's a tough question. If you make that decision, somebody else will say, no, you're wrong. You should have left it there longer. So yeah, I think it's a very difficult decision.
I have a point that I just remembered. If we weren't all in quarantine right now, I'm supposed to be in Thailand right now, actually, where they're doing expedition to the Lagarto, the submarine Lagarto in Thailand, flying at 70 meters. And there is an initial expedition that was supposed to leave, I think, 10 days, 2 weeks ago, so a week before we start. And one of the first objectives they had on the expedition was just to check if the wreck was still there, because there had been so much pillaging in the area of people hunting for scrap metal. They've taken wrecks out of the water simply. So again, that's one thing where you could go, wow, okay, so all the wrecks in the area have been simply pillaged to the point where they've been completely taken out of the water. Do you salvage something from a museum? I mean, this was supposed to happen this week.
Right. And that was the point that I was going to make is when I was getting into diving, what got me to this point is like the Titanic exhibits at some of the museums and being able to see the artifacts and being like, oh my God, that's underwater. I so want to see that. And then, when I was doing my instructor course, Dick Rutowski had a Doria plate hanging up. And I was like, I want to see that stuff. And we're in a different age now with the amount of electronics that we have, and we can see the video, and we can see the pictures, and it's a little bit more prolific that way. So, but to me, being able to see those was what kind of kicked me off to really wanting to go. And I see it from a standpoint. People walk in and see the bottles that are behind me, and they go, how do I see that stuff? And it makes it a little bit more tangible. But like you guys are saying, how do we know one way versus the other on when's a good way to take it? Ross, interesting question. What percentage of divers do we think are in this for the artifacts only? I guess is what he's probably trying to get at. Like who's going just, as they call them, the brass hounds. Who are the brass hounds? Who's just looking for glass? Who's looking for that versus who's diving to dive? What are you guys' thoughts?
I think these days it's a lot less than it used to be. In the early days in UK diving, that was it. You'd have clubs that would go out and would salvage the entire propeller of a ship. So I think it's a much smaller proportion these days. I guess it's going to vary hugely by countries. I mean that's something that I think the UK and the US still a little bit has that culture. There are some countries where it's just outright illegal. You cannot take anything off the wreck. So in those countries, pretty much zero. But yeah, I think in the UK and the US, probably there's still a single-digit percentage number of people whose main purpose is to lift stuff, I would guess.
Aaron, thoughts?
Yeah, I resonate pretty much with what Mark said right there. One funny story that came to mind was you gotta be careful with what you're actually taking out of the wrecks. I literally just remembered a guy that got something in truck, a nice artifact that he wasn't really sure what it was. He put it in his pocket. He was caught in Guam by the U.S. Army, and it was a bomb detonator. And he got a huge fine and was thrown in jail.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's the legal aspect of it too.
Yeah. That is very interesting.
Because you were saying it was downright illegal. It damn right is, especially when it's bomb equipment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they don't have a good sense of humor when it comes to that sort of stuff.
No, they don't. Yeah. But it's just rusty garbage, No, it's not.
No, that takes it to a whole nother level. That's not just a bottle. Wow. Let's see. I had another comment here I wanted to throw up there. Where'd it go? Public. Joe Stellini. Joe has this to say: should you have some sort of permit or some archaeological reason for preservation of artifacts, like at the SOS Save Ontario Shipwrecks rules in the Great Lakes? What's your guys' thoughts on that? Mark?
I think that's a great idea. I think actually that's one of the problems. Divers and archaeologists have had it's not even a love-hate relationship. They've had a hate-hate relationship. Archaeologists think that all divers just go down and pillage everything on a wreck. And all divers think that archaeologists just want to stop them diving on a wreck. I think if there was some way of getting archaeologists and divers to work together, that would be a great solution. If the archaeologists were keeping an eye on the wreck through video that divers were producing, and then made some decisions about now's the time to lift that. I think that's potentially the interesting bit, because most divers are amateur archaeologists. We're in it for the history. We love wrecks. We love the exploring them. We're amateur archaeologists, and most archaeologists don't want to go underwater. So it always frustrates me that there isn't a better link between the two communities.
Yes. Yeah, that is definitely the case. The SOS is doing a lot of good stuff up here. We're in a very different situation. For 4-hour drive, I can go out to the New Jersey coastline, and it is a very different thought process than an hour north of me to the St. Lawrence River. Very, very different. Its bottles are fairly fair game up in the St. Lawrence River, but other than that, we don't touch anything. And off the coast of New York, New Jersey, it's a very different thought process, if you will. I can't totally speak for them in any way, shape, or form. We should have a couple people jumping on here fairly soon. And they're right here, right now. So Aaron, why don't I let you go do your thing? And actually, I'll let you run off and do your thing also, Mark. And I got a couple people that are trying to jump in there. Feel free if you want to jump back on and debate, you're more than welcome to, but I'm going to try and separate the two camps so we don't get any direct action between them. If that works for you guys.
All right. See you later.
All right, guys. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. I'm going to jump these guys on in a minute. All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Cheers.
Right, cheers, Mark. Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to bring Danny Rivera in right now. Let me make sure that he's actually ready here. All right. So I'm going to hide you guys, hide you. And Danny is going to be in 3, 2, 1. Oh, boy. Hello, bud. What's up? Oh, well, let me turn you on. There we go. All right. Now you're on.
You immediately think I'm in the let's take artifact camp.
No, I've just had plenty of conversations with you that I don't know what direction you're going to go.
Gonna
It's
try to
better
be
to keep you separate from the general public. We all know this, right?
well. Yeah, that's fair. Very fair.
Yeah. So, what's your opinion, bud?
So I agree and disagree completely with everything everybody said. So
And this is why.
yeah. So at first, when I first started diving, I was in the do not take anything because it would be more interesting for us as divers. As I've grown, part of the excitement, part of the best part of diving is finding something that nobody else is going to see, nobody else is going to find. Uh, and that's part of the excitement of wreck diving in the Northeast. I think it's already been said. A lot of the places where they have pristine wrecks, especially freshwater and stuff like that, yeah, we shouldn't be touching these wrecks. They are far more interesting when they're completely intact. But a lot of guys said in the comments, when you have these wrecks that are deteriorating, where in 2 years, another season, maybe next week, you won't have a chance to see these no matter what. So it's better to have somebody have it in their living room or show it off at an artifact night at a dive club meeting than for it to just lay down there and do nothing.
Yeah. And that is a common sentiment that we hear back and forth from different people. In especially New York, New Jersey area. Jeff Gaudreau is going to join us in a couple of minutes. That I think I know where he stands on this whole thing. The classic brass hounds, and that's the discussion both ways is if you leave it for other people to see, it's that experience that they get underwater that like Mark was saying, where they get the experience, they get to see it, they get to see how it works. But at the same time, if you bring it up and you show it to people, maybe they've never seen it before. Maybe they will never have the chance. Maybe it's going to deteriorate, and it's a very interesting conversation we need to have, right? So,
well, I think I know Jeff makes a really, really good point, and he'll probably make it later. He's digging around in the mud at 300 feet, 2 feet down with his arms into it. No ordinary diver is going to see that unless he brings it up.
right.
Yeah, maybe in 20, 30 years, we'll have better archaeological technologies and, we'll be able to save all of these wrecks that we have. But there's two sides of it. Not all these wrecks are historically important. So, the fact that we're calling them artifacts rather than sometimes what they are is just a lot of garbage that we're finding on the sea floor. I don't know. I don't see the real problem with it. If you do it in truck, yeah, there's a problem.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you take a bomb detonator, like Aaron said. Yeah.
But some of the wrecks here in New York, New Jersey, freighters, stuff like that. I don't know. I just don't see the big deal with taking what you find.
Yeah. Let's see here. Stanley, let me take as many Doria plates as I possibly can, and then keep them in my attic. I think he's being a little sarcastic there. I'm not sure what he's up to there. But
I think, is he mad that he didn't find any when he did the wreck?
He did it. He does have a great story about who was I forget who actually took it, but they found a nice little bottle for him on the Doria, so it's a great little story. Is it take a pic? Oh, interesting. Isn't it better to take a picture and leave it for others to see rather than keeping it for yourself? Go ahead, field that. I have you guys here to do this. I'm just moderating. Why am I answering questions? Go ahead. Tell me what you think, Danny.
Yeah, sometimes. No. I mean, my rules for if I'm going to be taking something or not taking something is really, really arbitrary. I have certain wrecks that I have no problem try to rip apart as much as I possibly can, and other ones I won't touch anything. But
right.
Yeah, sometimes that's a fantastic way to do it, and other times, no, just take it. I can show you a picture on Facebook afterwards.
Yeah, and that's to play devil's advocate or something, but like the bottle's behind me. Okay, does that doesn't do anything for anybody? I mean, maybe like, oh, it's a cool bottle collection, but if I hand somebody this torpedo bottle, and they actually get to touch it and see the hand blown, the gas from being hand blown in there, it changes. It's a very different reaction that people have to that when they can actually see it, touch it, and they are immediately drawn. When they walk in the shop, they're immediately drawn to these. Where did you find these? How can I get to them? So that's it. I think it does elicit a very different response actually physically seeing it. Well, the other one, Meg teeth. You see Megalodon teeth, you're like, oh, that's a great picture when you see somebody holding it. But when you actually get one in your hand, it is a very different experience, completely.
Yeah, I mean, but like the same thing. Is there any historical significance in leaving a Meg tooth in the river?
Oh God, no! Hopefully not. I want all of them in my store.
But what's the difference, though? What's the difference between taking a plate or a bottle off of a wreck that's not necessarily historically significant and that is deteriorating and that isn't a war grave? What's the difference between taking a bottle or something off of that and a Meg tooth or anything else that you could find out there in the ocean?
Yeah. All right. The meat master himself, the real Jeff Gaudreau, seems to be here with us. So I'm gonna throw him on here. He's gonna come up in 3, 2, 1. There he is. A little bit of background noise. Danny, you got to go towards your middle a little bit. We lost you. Oh my God.
The meat master himself.
The meat master himself, Jeff Gaudreau.
I apologize. I'm running a few minutes late. I had a day planned out and I hit some traffic. So I haven't really been able to follow the conversation. So you might have to give me the 10-second overview here.
The 10-second overview is essentially if you can see it, other people should be able to see it, and they should be able to experience that for themselves. And we had we should leave at camp. A couple of stories of taking stuff that is technically illegal, but we were talking more truck and bikini. And then we haven't really hit the East Coast of the United States yet and those sorts of wrecks. But kind of discussion of deterioration versus not deteriorated, and where we're going with those wrecks. And it was just mixed opinions, basically.
Yeah. No, I get it. I understand the whole historic thing. As somebody who hunts shipwrecks and has been a part of finding a handful of shipwrecks, I know what goes into finding them. And the people who always say, well, leave it so everybody can see it. Quite frankly, they ought to invest, about $250,000 in equipment and get a team together and spend 4 or 5 years looking for a shipwreck. And when you find it, you can file a claim. It's your wreck. You can do whatever you want. You can leave everything right there. I don't have a lot of patience personally for everybody claiming they're an archaeologist. The real archaeologists. I don't know. Whatever. To me, it's you look at something like Stellwagen Bank Marine Sanctuary, like we have up here. Is a whale sanctuary. That's how they got it through and got it all passed. We spend millions and millions a year in our tax dollars on their budget, with all their staff and their boats and everything like that, hundreds of thousands of dollars for them to go out and search for shipwrecks. And they're listing, fishing boats and schooners that were literally a dime a dozen. You got the Palmer Prairie, they go apeshit over, pardon my English, they go apes over, protecting the Palmer. Sorry about that. I'm in truck driver mode here. Hang on.
Yeah, it's all good.
There you go.
Yes, the meat truck. The meat horn.
And what are they protecting? You got the Palmer Prairie that they're, don't touch it, you can't hook it, you can't do anything to it. Whereas you got, don't quote me, it's like the Hesper and the Luther up off of Maine up there, sitting in a harbor, rotting away. These are wrecks. You don't need to spend $100,000 on an ROV and research vessel to come look at, and they don't do anything with them. So the whole historical end of it is total BS. I am the #1 brass hunter out there. I love it. I love finding brass. I love hunting this stuff. I just like looking for stuff. We recently, as you guys know, found a warship. We touched nothing. Everything is there because that is a true historic site and it is a war grave. Hand over, nothing should be touched there. I didn't touch it. None of my guys touched it. And I hope people who go there in the future, if they ever do, don't touch anything. However, you take a World War II freighter where, 1,000 of them were sunk. Literally 1,000 ships. I mean, probably more than 1,000 ships in the North Atlantic were sunk. And what is it? There's nothing historic about it. There's nothing special about it. The bell off the Machen. When we found that thing was buried 297 feet deep, buried under 2 feet of mud, and there was literally that much. I don't know if you can see me. There was that much brass sticking out of the mud underneath the shipwreck. Okay, who the hell is ever going to see that? You post a picture of that on any scuba group, any scuba page. I'm thinking the big one off the top of my head. I posted 40,000 people and 50,000 people in that group. More people see the picture of that bell than they ever would see diving this stuff. Now you go to Truck Lagoon. I don't really know what's historic. I've never been to the Pacific. To tell you the truth, I'm a Northeast diver. I've been to the Caribbean once. I went to the Caribbean once in 2003. I've never been to the Pacific. I've been to the English Channel. They like to hunt brass over there. I don't really personally see what's historic about Truck. I don't know. There were a bunch of Japanese freighters. They built thousands of them during the war. Whatever. People like to go take their pictures. It's a big tourist destination, so leave the stuff alone. You take stuff in the Great Lakes, the Baltics. These shipwrecks will be around forever, hundreds of years. Our great grandkids will probably be going to Lake Superior and diving the Guinilda, diving these other wrecks, and they're going to look exactly or almost exactly the same as they do right now. However, you come to the North Atlantic, to the ocean, stuff's gone in 40 years. We got an oil tanker off of Gloucester that sank in 78, right? The thing's going to be a rust smear on the bottom in a matter of 50 years. There's nothing historic about this stuff. It's going to be gone. All these people have no qualms about taking a bottle. What's the difference between a porthole and a soda can, right? It's trash. It's man-made debris that was not meant to ever be in the ocean. Brass is not going to break down like the steel's going to rust away on the shipwreck. To me, it's a bunch of people who don't want to put the legwork into finding this stuff for themselves and seeing it for the first time and being the ones who decide what happens to it. And they want to come along afterwards and I caught myself again. Boy. And complain and do nothing but complain. And I love it. Me personally, me, I post a picture on the scuba group just to get people all fired up, and they get all torqued up for 3 days, and the admins get all pissed at me and whatever. I don't care. It's fun. Watch people melt down. Leave that alone. Oh, no, thanks. I'm never going to get to see that again on the shipwreck. Really? You're going to dive 300 feet with your freaking single tank in 38-degree water underneath a shipwreck and dig the thing freaking 150-pound bell out of the mud? Come on. Get the hell out of here. So anyways, that's fine. As you can tell, things are going really well for me today, and I'm in a chipper mood.
You're having a good day, huh?
I don't know how I like 100% agree with Jeff. Like, this is, I don't know. I gotta change, like, my voting policies and everything like that.
Yeah. Dan, you look like you need a haircut, man. Everybody laughs at the ball guys. I don't have the jungle head going on, so
this is staying around until this is all over. I'm not letting my wife touch it.
Slow it.
Nice.
Anyway, I don't know, and everybody's got their opinion, just like politics and everything else on it. But in the end, the people who are the ones complaining are the people who are never going to see this stuff. 99% of the time, are never going to see this stuff to begin with. Whatever.
I think that gives you a very different opinion on this whole thing because you posted a lot of stuff. You're willing to go out there. There's a couple people that have said, "Yeah, I'd love to join the conversation, but I don't want my name and face involved." But you're willing to put it out there, and the real Jeff Gaudreau, you're willing to put it out there. So you probably, caught that, you took it so I couldn't see it, like you were saying, and it's 300 feet deep under mud. Like, even if I did take a picture, it's the little, like you said, little piece of brass sticking out. What are you going to see from that?
You're going to see a little lip of a bell. Both bells were actually like that, but it's, I don't know. I can think of really, I think the Eagle is a historic wreck because of her military exploits and her history. The only other really truly historic wreck I can think of off of our coast is probably the Portland. You could probably make an argument for the Portland just because of the story behind that and history behind that wreck. But you've got Stellwagen out there. We're spending. It's our money, people. It's our tax dollars. They're spending thousands, and I think it's great. A buddy of mine is doing all their photo work, and I think it's fantastic. He's making a bunch of money, and it's good. I want to see that. But to identify fishing boats, the Joffrey, the North Star, I don't know, whatever the hell the thing's called. They're going to put the Patriot in there as soon as it's old enough to be eligible for the National Historic Register. They're going to put the Patriot on it. There's a fiberglass fishing boat. I mean, come on. There's 10,000 of them in Gloucester Harbor. You can go to any fishing port, New Bedford, Gloucester, Portland, all of these fishing ports, right? And they get all these old fishing boats. But suddenly, as soon as they hit the bottom of the ocean, they're historic. By the time that thing even hits the 100-year mark, it's going to be it'll be long gone, So I think it's a creative way for the real archaeologists. I think it's a creative way for them to. I always compared them to. People have heard this before. I've always compared them to like the fat guy in the office, and I say that as a fat guy. The fat guy in the office with brings in a box of donuts, right? And they lick their finger and go, mine, 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 right? That's what they do. The state, the federal government, NOAA. They come in and bang, it's our wreck. We determine what happens on this and that. And then you couple that with the people who, nothing against it. I'm a recreational at heart, and they come in, well, I'm never going to get to see it. Well, too bad, you're never going to see it anyways. More people see this stuff nowadays, particularly in social media terms. Once we can get stuff cleaned up and maybe ring the bell to like sea rovers, you're going to have thousands of more people see it than would ever have seen it on the bottom. You might be talking a couple dozen people in the world, would have seen it on the bottom. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I'm repeating myself, but
that's all right.
I laugh at these people who just.
I think it's important to Jeff. I don't think you're not advocating for like breaking the law, though, right? You're saying
no, not at all. I mean, no, absolutely. I mean, you got to abide by the laws. The laws are different from 3 miles to 12 miles, and then international waters. International waters is fair game. State waters, you gotta abide by their rules. As archaic as I think it is, whatever. There's a couple. I think back. On our beaches up here. There's a couple of like old, they're wooden ribs. That's all they are, is wooden ribs. And they uncover every year. Every like 10, 15, 20 years, you get a big storm, and they uncover for a few, and you'll find a state official down there. Oh, this is property of Massachusetts, or this is property of New Hampshire, and this is, nobody can touch this. Nobody can take a brass spike. Nobody can take a piece of wood homes. I mean, this is stuff that they burned on the beaches because they were an eyesore. I think a one-off hull, they burned it to get rid of it, and suddenly it's historic now. I just think it gives a lot of people a way to suck tax dollars and give perceived importance. Anyways, I don't know. So, like I said, as far as the recreational divers, go for it. Everybody says, well, I want to see it. But as soon as they come across it, it suddenly ends up in their basement, whether it's a bottle on their mantle or a freaking rivet like I said, I had some friends, that were giving a presentation in front of several hundred people, and somebody jumped up and said something about, well, you shouldn't be taking artifacts. Well, you know what? You invest $100,000 and go find your own shipwreck, and you can decide what happens to it. How about that? Nobody ever wants to do that. No. They all want to complain on Facebook. Nobody ever wants to do that. I think of the money we have invested, and we're just hobby hunters. That's all we're doing. I mean, just between the rebreathers, the gear, the training, the boat, the mag, the side scans, you're easily $250,000, and that's nothing. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. Space a sonar, a side scan sonar can cost you $100,000. So go spend the money, put your money where your mouth is, go find a shipwreck, and you can decide. You go find your shipwreck, and you can do whatever you want with the artifacts that are laying down there. I don't care. Pull them up, put them in a museum. Most museums don't want them. Most artifacts, everybody says put it in a museum. Most artifacts are in the basement of museums. We've got several tours now of maritime museums and stuff like that. Their basements, their side areas and everything like that is full. I mean, they want the stuff that goes ching, 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 ching for the kids to play with and mommy and daddy to make a donation to. They don't want the stuff. I was at the Navy History and Heritage Command. Great people, by the way. You want to talk about professional archaeologists. These people are truly restoring historic artifacts from warships. They have like warehouses full. They walked us through this stuff, right? They open in just drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers of, portholes from this wreck and a bell from this wreck. They have an entire, I think it's a Revolutionary, if I recall, it's like a Revolutionary War ship that they pulled out of maybe Champlain or Lakes, or I don't know, it's one of these places, right? And the ribs are just laid out in this warehouse. I mean, they have warehouses of this stuff, and nobody wants the stuff, but it's historic, and you can't touch it! Anyway, so, yeah, I don't know. So, on that note.
Oh, Lord, you are a character, Jeff.
I'll tell you what.
You got riled up today. The meat truck is just not, your meat truck office is just.
This is what I'm looking at right now. I'm sitting here parked. I was going to try and drive because I got like 400 miles to run today, but it didn't work out with the whole Bluetooth. I figured I'd do it as a phone call, but this is better. So, but I'm glad I can make it, and thank you for having me on. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there swearing at me and disagreeing with me right now, but oh well, so too bad.
So it's very interesting. There's a little sarcastic chit chat going back and forth, and some people that are unwilling to put themselves out there, or are intelligent enough to realize when they shouldn't speak in public. It's definitely.
I caught the tail end of like you guys talking when I jumped on a second ago, with Danny talking about like the megalodon teeth. Like I said, everybody's like, "Oh, you should leave it alone. You shouldn't touch it," until they come across it, and then suddenly, look what I found! Woo! I mean, and like I said, a megalodon tooth, a Shack's tooth, most of this brass is just it just looks like crap on the bottom until you get it all polished up. And I'll only tell you, it puts a lot of time. I've been soaking a bell down for 3 years. The big bell, just changing the water, because I don't know. Some people like to just pull it out of the water and take a grinder to it, but that's not me. I like to make sure stuff's cleaned out, and I'm getting ready to take that. I'm going to have that professionally redone. It's going to cost me probably, I think I'm looking at like $2,000, $2,500 to have this thing done. And when it's done, it is going to look spectacular, and it's going to be a true monument and a testament to the ship it came from. And some of the recovery. I can think back to the Machen. Talking to the family members, the first thing they asked for was, "Hey, do you think you can get me something from the ship? Something from our grandfather?" And we had talked to the son of the ship, the guy who Mr. Machen, who was the ship was named after, is a vice president of the agency, and we sent him some dishes and stuff like that. And it's like the greatest thing they've ever seen. He has the wheel from the ship, the first wheel, as a dining room table. With a glass top on it, just something to remember them by. So that's the first thing. These are family members. This is basically their ship, and this is what they're asking for. So, these people, to me, they're selfish people. Oh, leave it alone, leave it alone, leave it alone. So I can go and take a picture with my Mykonos 35. You better get the hell out of here. I mean, anyway.
I gotta jump off. I'm gonna come off shift now.
Okay. I'll let you guys get on to the next one here. I got to get back on the road and get going so I can swear at some more people.
That works. You enjoy your meat trucking.
Hey, wait a minute! I gotta give you. Hang on! I gotta give you a proper. There you go.
Yeah, the meat horn.
All right, guys, I got a boogie. Funny. I'll catch you later.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, talk to you. Bye.
See you. Thanks, Danny. Take care. Be safe, bud. All right, bye. All right, so that has pretty much taken care of everybody that was ready and willing, and actually puts us pretty darn close to an hour. And it was nice. We had 2 people for the 4 and 2 people for the kind of against removal of artifacts from the shipwrecks. I really appreciate everybody jumping on here and joining us, and everybody was fairly adult in the comments, which was pretty nice. I know some people were biting their tongues, and there was some sarcasm and a little bit back and forth, but it's a good conversation to actually have. What are we talking about? Where are we at with artifacts? What is the Ross? What is the ruling? The ruling is there is no ruling, Ross. It is up to whatever trash panda you have with you at that point in time. My standpoint is kind of down the middle in the gray area. I love bottles. I would love to get some brass. It is the wrecks that I tend to be preserved. They are in the St. Lawrence River and Great Lakes, and they, like we were saying, are going to be there forever. They're cold, they're deep, and they're going to be preserved. The ones that are deteriorating off of New Jersey and New York, that's when you start talking about the fact that they're deteriorating as quickly as they are. And from my standpoint of what got me into this is seeing artifacts from Titanic and seeing and reading about artifacts and touching and feeling stuff. That changed everything for me. The first piece of coal I touched off of a wreck that was just even sitting in the mud next to it basically instilled the fact that I wanted to continue on going forward. And obviously it's not all about me, but that I think we can take back for a standpoint of, we want it to be there, but we, at the same time, we need to be able to instill a love to other people, whether that is because they can see it. But like Jeff was saying, if it's 300 feet under a bunch of mud and he found it, or you found it, then that would be an item that, if it's not historically significant, besides the fact that it's wreck underwater, maybe it is some better up. And in, like Jeff was saying, there's museums that aren't necessarily going to display stuff, but at the same time, maybe little individual museums. We have some small museums, and they're not getting as popular as they used to be because of all the interactiveness that we have. But putting in a place where divers are highly congregated, maybe at some of the dive shows and things like that, is a way we could go with, showing off artifacts and getting new people involved. Rob Parker, yes, it is. It is hard to find, Rob, bottles anymore with all the zebra mussels. I will tell you this. I tell the story quite frequently to people that ask about the bottles behind me. I found a beautiful bottle, what I thought was a beautiful bottle, just underneath the silt. It had just the most perfect round configuration to it, and I had already found 2 or 3 had in my pockets, and we were in the middle of just a mud flat. And I just slammed my hand into the ground to grab that bottle, and it was a slimy, slithery eel that just popped out from under the water up in the St. Lawrence River. It was not a bottle at all, but I was totally expecting to palm a nice hard glass bottle, and it was a slimy, squishy eel. I have no problem with aquatic life, but when you expect a bottle and it's slimy and squishy, then it's like hugging Jeff Gaudreau and expecting it to be a chiseled man. So I appreciate you guys all joining us here. We will post this on YouTube. Give us a like and follow on YouTube so we can post some more. We are going to have another show on Friday talking to Scott Scuba Service and some of their photography, and we'll talk about that going forward. But yeah, join us on YouTube. Join us on Facebook Live. Keep up with the updates. Thank you very much for everything. And we will talk to you guys soon. Be safe, be healthy. Talk to you. Thanks, guys. Bye.